back to that 4th spot. I mean, I agree with it. I think TCU, I think Oregon, and I think Alabama, I think they're better football teams than Florida State. But when we're talking about rankings, you're not doing in your head like, well, this team is better than this team. Like, I'm almost positive that, UCLA is potentially better than Arizona. I mean, UCLA is ranked, 18, 19 now? Arizona's ranked 7. In fact, UCLA beat Arizona earlier in the year. Apparently, that doesn't matter to the committee when you talk about those two teams. But Florida State is undefeated. They started the year number 1, and I think they should remain number 1 until they lose a game. Do I think that, like I just stated, do I think they're a top 5 team? No. I think Baylor's better than them. I think Auburn's better than them. I think Mississippi State's better than them. It's just unfortunate that Florida State, plays in a subpar ACC conference. But, at the end of the day, it is what it is. As long as Florida State wins on Saturday, they're going to get into the college football playoff. But, oh boy, what a first-round matchup that would be. Alabama versus the defending national champion Seminoles, and then another good game between Oregon and TCU. But here's the thing about that. I'm not done yet. I love talking about college football. Baylor. If Baylor can get a win on the road at Kansas State Saturday, and TCU takes care of business like they're supposed to, I think they have a 97% chance to win against Iowa State at home. I would think that TCU and Baylor would swap because Baylor is the only team to beat TCU, and TCU's lone loss, came to Baylor. So, and Baylor's lone loss was against Oklahoma, I believe, something like that. I don't know. Baylor lost to West Virginia, excuse me. So I expect TCU and Baylor to flip-flop if Baylor gets it done on the road against Kansas State, who, by the way, is ranked number 9, so it's not going to be a cakewalk for Baylor on Saturday. So, we still have a chance for a shake-up, and I can't wait to watch the Selection Sunday show and see who those top 4 are and see what our matchups are on New Year's Day.
Well, my personal opinion with the whole Florida State deal, the fact that they're number 4 is, and you look at it, I think personally Florida State maybe shouldn't be in, and I'm sure the selection committee would agree, but Dan, you take a look at the ball clubs that could potentially overcome Florida State, and there's really no argument made that even they should be awarded a top 4 spot. I think it's more a case in point of Florida State is in simply because, well, the other guys or the other teams that could potentially enter just simply aren't as good. I think personally this is kind of an off year, top heavy, if you will, and really number 4 and number 5 aren't all that big of a difference, given that TCU and Baylor have both lost a game this year.
As of right now, the College Football Playoff Committee, they've got it right, except for that number 4 Florida State Committee. I don't know. I just don't think you could drop them. There's that, like Chris said, there's that whole human factor where everybody is probably cheering against Jameis Winston. The media does it. They portray him as a bad guy, and he has made bonehead mistakes, but he is 18 years old, 19 years old. I don't know any 18, 19-year-old that do stuff like he does, man. So, come on. And the teams that are ranked below, outside the top 4, I don't see them as teams that belong in the top 4. Ohio State,
I agree.
Baylor, and Arizona. Ohio State plays in the very weak Big Ten conference, and I just don't see them beating Michigan State. I think Michigan State beats them in the Big Ten championship. And then there's Baylor, who's ranked 6th, and they have beat TCU, but overall TCU, for some reason, a lot of the experts say that their schedule has been a lot tougher, and therefore they will remain inside the top 4.
I have to personally agree that TCU just has the tougher schedule, but Chris, I would like to get your thoughts on this. While Florida State's number 4, you look at the rest of the teams out there, and Dan agrees, there just isn't that much talent outside of the top 4 this year.
Yeah, I think it's kind of, I'll make a junior college comparison. It's kind of top heavy. You got the big dogs, Long Beach, Mount Sac, and RCC. And those are the big dogs really in junior college ball. And obviously, it's a very small sample size when we're talking about, 30, 35 teams in Southern California. And we're talking about 130 FBS Division I level teams. But, honestly, I have to agree, the way that Mississippi State has looked the last month, I don't think they're deserving of one of those top 4 spots. The only team you can really make an argument for is Baylor and maybe Ohio State. But Ohio State, let's not forget, they're going to be playing with their third-string quarterback in the Big Ten championship against Michigan State. I don't see a way where the Buckeyes can pull it out. But if they do give them credit, I still don't believe they deserve to be in that top 4. Like Dan said, the Big Ten, a very down year for them, to say the least. And, Ohio State, at the end of the day, if they're lost, it doesn't look good to Virginia Tech all the way back in week 2. And it's still haunting them. It's keeping them out of the 14 playoffs. And I expect it to, as long as the top 4 take care of business. Like I mentioned, the only thing I can see is a possible Baylor and TCU swap. But Baylor, it's going to be a tough game for them. Kansas is going to try and play spoiler on Saturday. And I think Kansas State might just be able to pull it out.
Well, let me throw a scenario at you guys. What very easily could be what we're looking at here following Saturday's action. Florida State upsetted by Georgia Tech, and how about TCU falling in their conference championship as well? What are you guys' thoughts about who are the 2 teams, I guess the 5 and 6, that could upend number 3 and 4 and reclaim their spot in a college playoff format? We'll start with you, Chris.
Well, first of all, unfortunately, in the Big 12 conference, and this is something I have a problem with, and many others do, so there is no conference championship game. So TCU will be hosting Iowa State, and Baylor will be on the road at Kansas State. So TCU, they're going to take care of business against unranked Iowa State at home. That's going to happen.
Yeah.
And we just don't know about Baylor and Kansas State. But like I said, the head-to-head is what should really matter. That should be the quote-unquote tiebreaker between Baylor and TCU. So, I expect Florida State to take care of business against Georgia Tech and their triple option attack. I think it'll be another close game, but the Seminoles, you got to give them credit. They just know how to win week in and week out. They find a way to get it done, kind of like Corona Centennial. And, we'll see what the committee has to say about TCU and Baylor, the top 2 teams out of the Big 12. It's a shame that there is no Big 12 championship, and I think, after all the chaos that, going on this year with the committee, I think they'll implement that in the coming seasons. But as of now, it looks like TCU is going to finish the season with a W, and Baylor's going to have a very tough trip to Manhattan, Kansas, to take on the Wildcats.
Yeah, and personally, this is what's great for college football. The whole entire ordeal will come down to the final Saturday. Outside of the top 4, Dan, now your thoughts. Who's the number 5 and number 6, if you will, given that one of the teams fall in the top 4? Who are the next men up?
The next men up, I would have to say, is I go with Arizona out of the Pac-12. It's always good to see another West Coast team other than Oregon compete for it now that USC and UCLA are totally out of the picture. Arizona's coming in with a 10-2 record, and we'll see if they can compete against Oregon. And the Pac-12, they could sneak by somehow, some way if Florida State loses, and let's say Ohio State, or then let's not forget, Oregon's lone loss this year came to Arizona at Oregon. This game being played at a neutral site. Right. Exactly. And let's say Baylor sneaks in because Florida State and TCU go down, Ohio State. So the dark horse would have to be Arizona squeaking by because of all the other upsets that, just bottom line, they'll need a lot of help.
Yeah, I certainly will. That'll be the case for just about every college playoff team. But before we go here on the discussion, again, Bojangles certainly is in the mix. We'll go very quickly to the state championship for junior college. And really, it's going to be a matchup of the ages, Mount Sac and City College of San Francisco. And we'll start with the man who will be covering that ball game here on Spreaker in all of only, about 10 days from now. It'll be coming up on December 13th, next Saturday, only here on Spreaker.com's National Sports. Chris, it's the number 1 and number 2 teams in the state, and really couldn't be any more storylines. It really couldn't be any more exciting of a ball game.
Well, I think it'd be a little more exciting if those orange and black Tigers would have made it. But, how Kraft goes, couldn't get it done in the Southern California Championship in the second consecutive year, and it Jackstrap and his mighty Mounties back in the state game. It is the 5th overall meeting between Mount Sac and CCSS in the state title game. Both teams 2 wins apiece. So if we're playing a best out of 5 series, the winner of this one will take home the invisible best out of 5 state championship trophy. I think these are the two, historically, when we take a look back, 20, 30 years ago, these are the two premier teams in California junior college football. It's almost like if Long Beach Poly and De La Salle were to meet up in the state championship, or Mater Dei and De La Salle were to meet up in the state championship. I mean, these are two programs at the community college level that have been storied for a long, long time. Here they are still getting it done in 2014, but I mean, you just look at the North and how thin the competition is up there, and you look down south and see, how tough it is week in and week out for teams to win. I just think you got to give the upper hand to Mount Sac, especially because they're at home as well. That's a tough game for CCSF having to bust all the way down. I believe it's finals week as well, so they have to take care of their business in the classroom as well. It's just, when we talked to Coach Jastrow about it, Nick, it's at a disadvantage for the players of, who's coming on the road. And I think that's why you see the road team rarely winning in the state championship game. And I think, same case in this one. And I think Mount Sac is just too talented on both sides of the ball. And I think at the end of the day, they'll pull away.
City College of San Francisco, the Rams did have their fair share of controversy of their own. They were able to sneak out with a 3-point win over American River, who it's been noted here on the national sports radio station, we believe to not even be all that good of a football team. Now, following that narrow win, they have to travel down south to take on the Mount Sac Mounties, and they may not even have their starting quarterback. We'll get you the update on that coming up next week. But, boy, this is just a team in San Francisco that I believe is so undermanned. Your thoughts about how those Mounties will clash against the winners of the North in San Francisco?
Well, first things first, if they're undermanned, I think Amarius Tober's going to run them over because that's what he did against RCC. I think he rushed for over 150 yards. Definitely was averaging over 5 yards a pop, and he just wore out the RCC defense, which I thought nobody would be able to do. And not to mention, they didn't turn over the ball. So if they continue that same game plan, the Mounties are just going to blow them out. If San Francisco shows up undermanned, and it's just too much of a trip for San Francisco to make to come down all the way over here. They better come in a day early if I'm them, but the way junior colleges handle themselves, I wouldn't be surprised if they take off in the morning somehow.
Yeah, that would really be the biggest pain to take off.
What in the world? What if they blow flat on the field and fix it and I play it? Well, that'll be something. Hey, how about a thank you to all our friends over on the East Coast? It's almost 3 a.m. out there.
Yeah, definitely want to. God, this show is amazing.
Yeah. Bojangles is in the mix.
Thank you all for joining us here on the National Sports Radio Station on Spreaker.com. I have no clue what the hell the last minute was. But, again, I want to thank you all for joining us. We'll be back next Wednesday only on The Discussion, here live at around 10:30 p.m. Pacific, 1:30 on the Eastern Time. Thank you all for joining us, and make sure to tune in a week from tonight. Also, not to mention on StretchInternet.com. God, they're going crazy over there. StretchInternet.com will have live play-by-play of the Braves and the Corona Centennial Huskies. Good night, everybody.